We are going to bring up our very first presenter. I don't know how many of you guys know who Marcus Sheridan is. By raise of hands, I can't see you right now, but by a whoop-de-woo, who in here knows who Marcus Sheridan is? All right, that's absolutely awesome. That should absolutely be the case. Marcus is a good friend of mine. We go way back, a whole whopping 5 or 6 years or something like that. That's a way back. Anyways, he's like a mentor to me. I've known him for a while. This man is incredible. He is like an incredible speaker, on the international stage, and he is like rated one of the top speakers to see in your lifetime. And so when we hear that stat come out, we know that we need to bring in Marcus Sheridan again. So just so you know, this is Marcus's third time with us. He's a returning champion. So when I introduce him, I want a huge Utah DMC returning champion. Welcome, Marcus Sheridan.
Wow. All right. When he said, how many of you know Marcus Sheridan? For the 3 of you that raised your hands, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. We're going to have a great day together. And you know what? This is like, to watch how this community has grown over the past, for me, I guess like 4 or 5 years that I've been here. It's pretty magical. And we're going to have a great conversation today. And I hope it's just that it's a conversation. And I want to give you a quick sense for my story before we get going. Now, most of you don't know my story. I'm going to give it to you really, really fast. So I used to be a pool guy. Does anybody that doesn't know my story? Does anybody know what type of in-ground swimming pool this is? What's it made out of? Does anybody know? Not a gunite pool, but good guess. All right, gunite or concrete is one of the main types of pools. That, sir, is a fiberglass swimming pool, and that's one of roughly about 1,500 fiberglass pools my company, River Pools and Spas, has installed throughout. Now, we started this company in 2001. We were basically like right out of college. Started this company with 2 buddies. Things were going pretty well up until a particular date and a particular number, which is this right here. Now, hey, by the way, if it doesn't keep working, it's okay. Let's just turn it off, all right? If it doesn't keep going, like if it just keeps going, just go ahead and turn it off. We'll just have a conversation with the audience, all right? So the economy crashed in 2008, as many people know. Now, who here was affected by the crash of 2008? Raise your hand for me. Yeah, so how do you think that was for pool companies? Yeah, does anybody know how pool companies get the money to buy a swimming pool? Excuse me, how people get the money to buy a swimming pool? Does anybody know? Yeah, sometimes I speak with CEOs, and they'll say is bonuses. And I say, no. See, this is America. We borrow the money here, right? So it's a home equity line or a second mortgage. And after that day, the day of the crash was so bad that we had, within 48 hours, we had 5 people that withdrew their deposit and said, we just can't do this. And over the coming weeks and months, it got worse and worse. And by January of 2009, we're literally going over the edge. Go ahead and switch the mic with me. Switch up. And so, but by January of 2009, we're literally going out of business. And in fact, I talked to 3 consultants, and all 3 consultants said the same thing, that I should file for bankruptcy. But the problem was, if I filed bankruptcy, I was going to lose my home. My 2 business partners would have lost their homes. My 16 employees would have lost their jobs. So we had to figure out how to get back over that edge without really spending any money to do it. We had to do it fast, right? And so that's when I started to read about the internet. Now, here's the cool thing about pain, and I'm really serious about this. It forces us to do things we otherwise may never, we possibly never would have done it. It was during that time of financial ruin for many companies that we had some of the most innovative times in growth that we've ever had all over the world. It certainly happened with me in my life. And so if we ever have another downturn, which is going to happen, look forward to it because it will force us to be better than we currently are. I know that to be true. And so because we went through this process, I started to read about the internet, of course, and heard all these phrases like inbound marketing, content marketing, social media, blogging, all that stuff. And what I heard in my simple pool guy mind was, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions and you're willing to address them on your website through text and video, you just might save your business. And so I said, we can do that. And we embraced what we called They Ask You Answer. Now, I'm not going to talk about really They Ask You Answer very much today, but this has become a movement. It became a book, and thousands of companies now all over the world have embraced the philosophies of They Ask You Answer. And if you haven't read the book, I'm not telling you it because it's mine. I'm telling you because of the amazing case studies that have come from it. It is a beautiful form of business. It's a philosophy, an obsession with the way the buyer thinks and the willingness to address the questions they have, the fears, the worries, the concerns even though nobody else in your industry will. Okay, but that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about something very specific. You know, usually with keynotes, it might be inspirational. I don't want to focus so much on that today. I want tactical stuff that if you want to be ready for what's next, that you have a conversation here, that we have a conversation about video that I know you can apply immediately when you get back to the office. Okay, so serious question. Why, and sometimes say when I ask questions, don't hesitate to talk back, right? And this is one of those, because we will have some conversations. Why, if you had one main reason why you think companies are struggling with video, and oh, by the way, I'm not going to waste the time today on stats about video, because you as a marketer, you don't need to be told that you should be doing video at this point. You know that. You know that. And so we are past that point because it is changing the world of sales and marketing as we know it. So now the question is, how do we make it a culture within our companies? And it goes back to this question right here, right? So why do you think so many companies are struggling with video right now? Go ahead, say it nice and loud. Okay, people don't like being on video. That's an interesting one. I deal with that one all the time. Now, we might talk about that later, but I want to address one now. What's your name, by the way? Caleb. This is great. Where people say lots of things about video. What's funny to me is I spend a lot of time training sales teams. One of the things that we spend a lot of time with is teaching people on-camera performance. I had no idea that this was going to be such a major request. So companies are finally realizing you can't just throw your team in front of the camera. You know what's crazy, Caleb? Is if you give someone a little bit of training, they will find that here's what's funny. If you go to most people, especially salespeople, and you say, are you good with people? What do you think most people say, Caleb? Absolutely. I'm very good with people. But then you say, are you good on camera? And they say, well, that's not my thing. Now, what's the problem with that? Do you see how that's a paradox? The fact of the matter is, the moment you start seeing the camera as your customer, as real people, it starts to change the mindset that we have. If you are good with people, you could be great on camera. If you're not good with people, great, because the camera is not a person anyway. So you win both ways. That's not the number one reason, though. What do you think the number one reason is? Companies are struggling with video, and I will be surprised if anybody says it. Anybody else have a guess? Go ahead, nice and loud. They think it's too expensive. It's definitely one. You know what's funny about this, though? Generally speaking, when it comes to business, I know you've seen this before, when leadership understands the value of the thing, all of a sudden they find the budget, don't they? That's how it works. And so almost always resistance comes from ignorance. Ignorance happens because generally the ones that need to hear it the most, where are they not? They're probably not here today. Isn't that true? Now, some of you are the leaders of your companies. Good for you. Thank you for coming, because that makes all the difference. That's still not the number one reason. It's a good one, though, and it's a major factor. What's another one? Can anybody take a guess? Over on the side with the blue book. Go ahead, nice and loud. I think it needs to be too polished. That's a really good one, by the way. That is a big problem, because a lot of people think that video is like NASA. You know, it's got to be perfect to launch. And this is why there's so many like rich teenagers on YouTube right now, because they don't really care. They're just like, let me just press the button here. Let's see what happens. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, all these old fogies are saying, I don't know if that's on brand. So let me give you the biggest reason. Here's the biggest reason. And this will start to make you think about it. So if I came to your company right now, and I said, okay, you have to choose one. Do you primarily see video as a marketing initiative, or do you primarily see it as a sales initiative? Now I want you to raise your hand, and everybody, please, when we do little polls like this, so they participate. How many of you would say that primarily you view it as a marketing initiative? Raise your hand. Okay, all right, good. Now, how many would say primarily we see it as a sales initiative first and foremost? You see, that's why we're failing with video. Right there. It's the number one reason. You say, I don't totally understand what you're saying, Marcus. Okay. So, many of you are primarily marketers in this room. I love you. You are grossly underpaid. You are underappreciated, and you're wearing too many hats right now. I have been obsessed, literally obsessed, over the past, I've been writing about sales and marketing for about 10 years. And I realized early on that what kept happening is I was saying stuff. Marketers would come to me and say, Marcus, I believe these philosophies. I want to apply this stuff to my business. But the problem is, when I go to my sales team, when I go to my leadership team, what do they say? No. That's not our job. That's not what we do. And so they're fighting. Every day is a fight. Every day is a fight. And so this is why, over the course of roughly 600 or 700 presentations, I've given about 300 workshops around the globe to companies. You see, they bring me in when they can't get aligned between sales and marketing. And we go and solve that problem. And when that problem is solved, everything starts to change. Everything in your company will change if you align sales and marketing. In fact, some of the most progressive companies in the world don't even have a, quote, sales and marketing team anymore. They have what we call revenue teams because they realize the overlap between the two is so great today that the idea that they're separate in silos is ridiculous, certainly for 2019 and beyond, that we can't see it that way anymore. I learned a long time ago in business, just like you have learned, and that is this. If you want to get something approved, an idea, a new movement within your company, a product, or whatever that thing is, a strategy, you must call it a sales initiative. But if you want to get it rejected, if you want to get it tabled for later, call it marketing. Everybody in this room right now is like, son of a gun. My gracious, this whole time. You think what matters most to your success as a marketer is your ability to know data and PPC. No, it's not. Fundamentally, your greatest success as a marketer will rise and fall with your ability to get buy-in from the rest of your team. It is your greatest struggle, and it will be your greatest accomplishment. It will not happen if we speak like marketers. We must speak like sales. And we must present ideas from a sales standpoint. I am going to show you how to present video from a sales perspective. If you want to get your team excited about video, if you want to get approved for the budget that you need, I want you to follow the following. Because what happened was, you see, not only do I own a swimming pool company, but I own an agency. I've got about 70 employees, and we help companies implement digital sales and marketing stuff, right? And a few years ago, I went to my team and I said, video is the future of the way we sell and of the way we market, and most companies aren't ready for it. I want to teach companies how to have a culture of video in-house. And they said, Marcus, I don't think that's really going to work because everybody pretty much outsources their video for the most part, and I don't think you're going to be able to get them to do that. I said, no, that's not going to set them up for success, though. Because the future of digital is ownership, that you know how to do as much as possible in-house, that you're not constantly calling another company to do it for you, and this is coming from someone that owns an agency. The future is not found in you having to always call someone to cross the T's and dot the I's for your digital presence. You know that, and I know that. In fact, the greatest case studies that we see in the world right now are from the companies that own stuff in-house, especially when it comes to content production, certainly when it comes to video and text. Over and over again, the patterns do not lie. History does not lie. And so when we started this process, it's been this amazing journey to see what works and what doesn't work. I've now helped about 150 companies truly embrace a culture of video. They've got it, but they started right here. They started with what I call the Selling 7. Now, for those that have read the Ask You Answer, the new version just came out. It's got 30,000 new words. Most of it is on what I'm talking to you about today, okay? So it's in that book for a full deep dive of everything we're getting ready to say. So what are the Selling 7? These are the 7 types of videos that move the needle the most. If you want to move the sales needle, get your sales team excited, have your sales manager loving you to the end of time, fighting for you in the boardroom, this is the plan. Now, by the way, I'll tell you one video that doesn't really work. It's the #1 video out there that we're producing. I'm not saying we, like companies around the world. They're spending the most money on it, and yet, generally speaking, it never drives results. Does anybody know the name of that type of video? Come on. About Us. Oh, yes. Spent $15,000 on that one, didn't you? When was the last time your salesperson said, you know what, if I just had that About Us video right now, I would close this deal. Never in the history of the world. How about we produce videos that are quicker to produce, but actually drive results? Wouldn't that be more fun? So let's look at them. First one. Oh, by the way, if you're ready for the list of 7, say, I'm ready. Okay, I think we're ready. All right, number 1, the 80% video. Let's talk about it. So, is anybody here primarily in sales? Primarily a salesperson on your team? Raise it nice and, yeah, okay, good. So we've got like 3 of you. Great. Now, if you go to any salesperson, hopefully next year you're going to see 300. Because once again, marketers, if you want to get the buy-in, let's get them in the room. If you go to any sales team and you say to them, what percentage of the questions you get on almost every first sales call are essentially the same questions every single time? Across the board, B2B or B2C, and everything I'm telling you today, by the way, is B2B and B2C. There are no exceptions in this audience, I promise. Nonprofits, I've done it all. We've experimented with all of it. Product, service, big, small, local, national, mom, pop, all of it, okay? Any sales team will tell you roughly 75-80% of the questions we get are the same questions every single time. So here's the question. Why do they continue to answer the same questions over and over and over again? Why? Do they like it? Do they just enjoy hearing that redundant question for the umpteenth million time? If you go to any salesperson and say, do you ever hear questions that just annoy you to death when you talk with a prospect for the first time? They're going to be like, oh my goodness, I got a whole list for you. And you say to that salesperson, so what if we could eliminate those? What if they already knew the answers to all those questions, but they had heard it from us before you ever even show up? Would that be valuable to you? Every single salesperson in this room, certainly your team is going to say, yeah, I'd be down with that. So here's how the 80% video works. Take all the major products and services that you have, okay? All right, you might have 3. You might have 300. If you got 300, choose top 1% that are driving 80% of your revenue, okay? Typical Pareto's law here. Now, once you do that, brainstorm the major questions that you get every single time on a sales call with respect to that product or service. Here's what we found. You want to choose between 7 and 10. You create one video that addresses those 7 to 10 questions and addresses them well. It doesn't waste words, but it still addresses them well. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, Marcus, I heard that videos shouldn't be longer than 90 seconds. Maybe, quite possibly, that is the dumbest stat in the history of the internet. Because if somebody is getting ready to spend money, do you think they're willing to watch a video that's longer than 90 seconds? That stat is based on social media and watch. This is why the #1 ranked video on YouTube right now, when it comes to SERPs for YouTube, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. The idea that all videos should be short is not based on data. It's based on a subset of data, which comes from social. Let us not be skewed by social. Let us actually understand how humans think. That's what we must do as great marketers. And then, once you have that video produced, and hopefully, if you have multiple products and services, you're going to have multiple videos, you will teach your sales team, working with your sales manager, how to integrate that into the sales process, because there's going to be another issue that you have. You can't just produce it for your sales team. You must teach your sales team how to integrate content into the sales process. Many, you would think, would just know offhand. The majority, unless it's trained to them, taught to them, they're not going to just get it right out of the gate. I say that because I've experienced this so many times. Let us not assume. The 80% video will change your company's life if you have a great program where it's implemented every single time before every single sales call. I promise you that. That's #1. Number two, landing pages. Love this one. As marketers, you'll love this one too. Now, for the context of this conversation, we're going to say landing page is any page on your site that you have a form that somebody could fill out, okay? Now, when somebody's filling out a form on your website, there's 4 major fears that they have. What are the 4 major fears people have when they're filling out forms? Anybody know? Okay, are you going to spam me to death? Privacy. Okay, what are you going to do with my information? Number 3 is, are you going to call me to death? And number 4 is, so if I fill out this form, what exactly is going to happen right now, right? So those are the 4 major fears that people have. So here's what you want to do. You want to put a video immediately next to the form. But the video must have a very vibrant title, because if you can't see the title, magically, people don't click on it. You know what's crazy to me is if you look at so many websites, you'll see over and over again that we place videos on sites, but people don't actually know what they're about. We do not click on that which we don't understand it is about. There must be a tease. There must be something there that helps them know what they're getting ready to see, okay? And so, can anybody guess what the title of that video should be? Don't be afraid. Okay, I like that. That was pretty good. Okay, don't be afraid. No, be very afraid. Okay, all right. My man said, why should I fill out this form? That's very good. He's very close. Here's what you should put down as the title. See exactly what will happen if you fill out this form. You see the psychology? Little things make all the difference in our world. Messaging, communication, it all matters. That's what they're thinking. What's going to happen if I fill out this form? That's exactly what they're thinking. That's the essence of they ask you answer. That's why it works. Because when you obsess over the way they think, you can become dramatically more successful, okay? Let me give you a quick example of this. So let's cue up the video. Now, what we're going to watch here is we're going to watch a video from my swimming pool company, okay? This is an example of one we have on our landing page. See how he addresses the fears and how you could apply this to your business, because what matters is how you could apply it and everybody in here could. Okay, let's go ahead and watch that video. Anybody see the Easter egg? Art Vandelay. You gotta love it, right? You gotta love it. Now, how do you feel? Go ahead. How do you feel about that company right now? Anybody? Comfortable, trust, like them. Why? Why do you feel that way? Straightforward. They talked to you, just like you're thinking right now. Here's what's amazing. We've done this with so many companies, right? And this is what we found. That if you put a video like that next to the form, you'll get on average an 80% lift of the conversions for that specific page. Now, if you had 80% more people that were filling out your Get a Quote form over the next year, what type of financial impact could that have on your business? And if you're showing the ROI, what type of financial impact could that have on you as the marketer? Because now they're seeing your worth and straight ROI of you as an employee of the company. Who doesn't need that? I'm hoping somebody in this room creates that video tonight, because you could. Don't overcomplicate it. It will change many things for you. Okay, let's look at another one, bio videos. That's number 3. Okay, so bio videos is mainly for anybody that's customer facing, but especially for sales teams. So we want to get to a point where every salesperson has a specific bio video. It has 2 parts. It talks about them personally and professionally. It's not long, probably like 90 seconds, but here's the key. You want to integrate it into an amazing place that most companies still don't leverage, which is your email signature. So here's a sample of an email signature. And this is one of my team members, Zach Basner. So this is just a sample of what it might look like. Now, most of you have what you might call this top part, right? But here's what's crazy. Most salespeople, especially, do not have this bottom part. And so what you do is, the tool that I would recommend that you consider is YStamp. It's not the only one. There's another one called Sigster. But those are 2 great email signature tools. When you take that video, you make it, and you put it up into YouTube, take the URL, and you put it into YStamp, you can have this. Here's what we find. That on average, typical salesperson is going to get 25 to 30 more views a month. These are 25 to 30 more people now that feel like they have a relationship with that person before they shake their hand for the first time. Now, raise your hand if your sales team, or anybody that's really customer facing, okay, has a bio video in their email signature right now. Raise your hand. Look around the room. You see, this is why we come to events, folks. There's literally, now there could have been somebody, I didn't see a single hand raised. See, these are tremendous missed opportunities. But what happens is, when a video like that gets produced, your sales team starts to become more dependent on you. You want to create dependency. You want them to look like stars. If you make your sales team look like geniuses and your leadership team look like geniuses, you will be indispensable. And I want you to get to that point. You cannot be passive about this. We don't change the world by being passive marketers saying, I hope that this gets approved. We change the world by teaching it so well that they can't deny its efficacy, and they say, my goodness, why are we not doing that? This is what I've loved to see over the course of my travels with all these companies. Few hours with the company, it's amazing what will happen. CEO looks at the marketer, says to the marketer, why are we not doing this? CMO looks back at the CEO and says, what do you mean? I've been saying this for 3 years. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. Okay, now, number 4, product service pages. Now, in most cases, the second most viewed page of your site is probably your product or your service pages. Now, here's the thing. You have to have one specific video for every major product or service that you sell. You have to. At this point, you don't have a choice. I could go down all the reasons for this. There's just so many different reasons. And I didn't want to come here and just vomit a bunch of stats on you that you since inherently already know. You don't need to be convinced about video at this point. Okay? Now, here's the thing about product or service page videos. There's a major psychology that most businesses don't apply when it comes to product or service videos. It has to have 2 parts. Almost everybody has the first part when you produce these before, but almost no one will have the second part. Here's the first part. First part is you talk about who the product is for, the problem that it solves, why it's good, okay? But the second part is this, and it's way more important. It's who the product or service is not for. Who is not a good fit for the product or service. Anybody, why would you say openly, blatantly, honestly, on your site, within your copy, within your messaging, why would you openly say who your product or service or company in this context is not a good fit for? Anybody go, come on, somebody tell me. Trust, expectations, good, nice and loud. Credibility, that's right. Because the moment you're willing to say what you're not in life is the moment you become dramatically more attractive to those who you are a good fit for. Everything starts to change. See these companies, talk with them on their messaging, and it's like, talk about all these things that they are. I'm like, no. You start where you are. Where are you not? What are you not? What is the philosophy you do not share? What do you not want to be? Who do you not want to sell to? Now we can make some progress. Now we can get somewhere. Now, once again, I know I'm doing a lot of polls, but I want you to see why this is so outrageously applicable to us. Raise your hand if you very transparently on your site right now talk about who your products and services are not a good fit for. Raise your hand. Look at that. Look at that. And that's how you will become the most trusted voice in your space. I have had some amazing experiences with companies that I wish I could just talk to you about. And corporate massage is one of them. They asked you answer 4 years ago. They become that voice of trust within the corporate massage space. It's amazing if you just talk about it in a way that humans want to interact with you versus what we've necessarily been taught in school. Number 5, my favorite of the selling 7, cost price. My, oh my, cost and price. Anybody that's ever heard me before knows that I'm going to talk about cost and price today. Doesn't matter the subject, I've always got to talk about this because this is the great driver. Google recently came out with a stat that I've been sharing for like 10 years. And they said, guess what the number one thing is that after somebody watches a product or company video, right? Especially a product video. After somebody watches a product video online, what's the first thing they do almost every single time? Does anybody know? They research, not reviews. How much is it? It's the first thing they do. Now, do you know why that's the first thing they do? Anybody have a guess? Because nobody bothered to tell it to them in the video. because it wasn't there. And ignorance leads to, in this case, them trying to find out. Part of They Ask You Answer, when we did all these beautiful studies and we looked at the data, there's basically 5 subjects that move the needle all over the world. B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. In other words, when somebody's researching a product or service, they want to know 5 things before they talk to a salesperson. Essentially, as buyers, we're obsessed with how much is it, what are the negatives or issues with it, how does it compare to that other thing that I'm looking at, what is everybody saying about it, my man mentioned that a second ago, and what is the best it. It could be any number of products or services. And here's what's fascinating. As buyers and consumers, we are obsessed with these 5 things. We research them every single day, yet notwithstanding, most businesses don't talk about these 5 things. And then we wonder, why does our content not resonate to the marketplace? Why are we not getting traction? Now, there's a clear reason. 80% of the content you produce, especially the first year, if you're really aggressive, should be aligned with these 5 things. No, I'm not kidding. Absolutely, 80% of the content. Now, so let's talk about cost and price and let's have fun with it. I need everybody's participation with this. I'm going to show you the story on this because many of you are not understanding how would I talk about cost and price? Well, let's figure it out together, but I need everybody's participation. If you're ready to participate, say yes. Okay, you've been awesome so far. So, by a show of hands, how many of you have researched how much something cost online, let's say over the last year or so, by a show of hands? Okay, anybody not done that? Possibly any Amish in the room, which is respectable, okay? Now, when you're on a website and you can't find anything about cost and price, and you're looking for it, what is the emotion you experience? Go ahead, what's the emotion? Frustration, you're gonna say that. That is, my friends, the F word of the internet. So the question is this, what gives you the right in that moment? What gives you the right to feel frustrated? Come on, what gives you the right? You're wasting my time? Feels manipulative, it doesn't exist? But in this case, you are the what? I am the customer. I'm trying to give you my money, and you're making it very hard. So in this moment of frustration, what's your name? Haley. In this moment of frustration, Haley, do you say, oh, I'm sure it's on this website somewhere. I'm just going to keep on digging on this here little pretty website until I find it. In fact, we've done the studies. Guess how long, if somebody's looking for cost and price on your website, guess how long they'll stay looking for it if they can't find it? Oh, this must be Utah. We're also patient here. Less than 10 seconds. Less than 10 seconds. Now, in that moment of frustration, you said, Haley, in that moment of frustration, Haley, do you say to yourself, that's okay, they're not talking about it. Of course they're not talking about it. I should have known. They're a value-based business. I'm going to call them on the phone instead. I know, we stopped that one like 5 years ago, didn't we? Because instead of calling them or digging further, you as the buyer, you as the searcher, you keep doing what? Keep searching. And you search until what happens? Go ahead. You search until what happens? You find what you were looking for. And generally speaking, whoever gives you what you were looking for, they're going to get what? Your business, your money. And if not your business, they're going to at least have first contact, first phone call. And I'm sure we could all agree in this room, even though we're all different in our own unique ways, we could all agree that we would rather be the first company contacted every single time. Yes or no? Now, if we get to the psychology of this, the real reason we get so upset as buyers is because we know that they know the answer, or at least a semblance of the answer. And because we know they know the answer and they're not giving it to us, we now feel like they're hiding something from us. And the moment you feel like anybody is hiding anything from you online, what happens? Trust is gone. And again, folks, that is the business we are all in. That will never go away, ever, for as long as we're around. Now, that being said, one last poll, okay? This is one of the most important. That being said, we all agree that this is how we've changed as buyers. This is our expectation. By a show of hands, how many of you talk a lot about cost and price of your products and services on your website right now? Raise your hand high. Look around the room. You know, I've been talking about cost and price for 10 years, and I still can't crack 10% of rooms. Now, this is the part of the conversation many of you are saying, but you don't understand my business, pool guy. I thought I liked you, but now, not so much. That's okay. That's why we're here. We didn't come to sing Kumbaya, right? We came to be pushed outside of what is normal for us. You see, there's three major reasons why we don't like to talk about cost and price on our websites. Again, especially for B2B service-based businesses, which those need this the most. First major reason why we don't like to talk about cost and price. Anybody go? Anybody? That's right. Somebody said it's tentative. Depends, right? It depends. My man, what do you sell? Supplements. Oh, yeah? You thought about that. You're like, I really sell, something else, but I'm going to call it supplements right now. That's cool, dog. Hey, that's cool. Now, hey, we've all been there. You got to have that boost. So, what's your name, by the way? Tiago. Tiago, the supplement man. See, free sponsorship right there. Okay, good. So, Tiago, if I came to you, and just answer me yes or no, and I said, can you help me understand what would drive the cost of supplements up? Like, what are the factors that make them more expensive? Could you help me understand that, yes or no? If I came to you and I said, can you help me understand what would keep the cost of supplements down, like the factors that would keep it down? Could you help me understand that, yes or no? If I came to you and I said, you know what, been looking at your supplements, also got a quote from a couple other providers for their supplements. It seems like you all say you offer roughly the same thing, but the pricing is really variant. Like there's a delta in the industry. Can you help me understand why there's such a delta in your industry? Could you help me understand that, yes or no? And of course, how many times have you had to explain that over the course of time selling your supplements? Many times, he says. In fact, everybody in this room has had to explain that many times, haven't you? Haven't you? You see, the old "it depends," that's the easiest one to address. It's the most important one to address, and yet we allow it to happen after they talk with the salesperson. What an epic failure. Because that does not align with the way that you and I research, does it? Second reason why we don't like to talk about cost and price. We say things like we don't want our competitors to know. That's what's funny about that one. If I came to your sales team right now, and I said to your sales team, do you all have a pretty good sense as to what your competitors charge? What would they say? Oh, yeah, we do. We've done our market research. And so therefore, newsflash, if you have a great sense as to what they charge, it therefore means what? They know what you charge. You see, this is the big secret, non-secret. Everybody acts like nobody knows what everybody's charging, when in reality, everybody pretty much knows what everybody else is charging. Besides that, when was the last time your competitors paid your bills? Third reason, maybe the best. We say things like, well, Marcus, we tend to be more expensive. And if we're more expensive, we just might lose the deal. Here's what's funny about that. You cannot lose that which you don't have. Ain't got no deal. You ain't got no business yet. And what's funny about this is what we all just agreed as friends and family of the DMC is the thing that scares us away when we're researching is when the company, come on, when they don't address the thing. Case in point, what's your name, brother? John. Great facial hair. Man, you look good, bro. Okay, so, John. Say John wants to go to a new restaurant tonight. He's going to take a loved one, wants it to be a great experience. Now, before he goes to that restaurant, if he's like most humans, he's probably going to do two things to make sure it's going to be a good experience other than make a reservation. What are the two things he's probably going to do before he goes? Anybody go? Reviews, look at the menu, right? Okay, good. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If John goes, and don't answer this, John, right? If John goes and looks at that menu and there is no pricing, is he still going to go? Now, some of you are thinking, well, that depends, Marcus. Is it going on the company card or not? I feel you. I feel you. But this is what we know. In that moment, 80% of all people will not go. And it's not because they can't afford it. What was the reason? Because the moment they left it blank, they planted a seed of doubt. And when seeds of doubt exist, what happens? Inertia occurs. Same reason, John. You went to that restaurant, didn't you? And he looked at the menu when he was there, and he saw that they had his favorite lobster. Now, one problem. Next to the lobster, what did he see? Market price. Now, old John here has a choice, doesn't he? What's his dilemma? Come on, what's his dilemma? John says, if I ask and then I don't order the lobster, it makes me look cheap. And John, we already know you're cheap, but you don't want us to know, and so what does he do? He orders the chicken. That's what he does. Why? Because it was safe. It was safe. Now, you might say, I don't know if that's the same thing as my business, Marcus. Oh, no. It's all the same because it's all psychology. So some of you are still not convinced. So let's look how we did this. When we embraced the philosophies of They Ask You Answer, the first piece of content we put on our website was, how much does a fiberglass pool cost? And we said, buying a fiberglass pool, it's like buying a car. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of accessories. Here's what would drive it up. Here's what would keep it down. Here's why some companies are expensive, why some companies are cheap. Here's some ranges as to what you might spend depending on if you want to have a very basic pool or a very complex pool. But we were willing to explain why it depends. Something really amazing happened because of that. People started calling, literally, and saying, thank you, finally, somebody was willing to talk about this thing. Because how much practice did you have buying swimming pools when you were a kid? Anybody teach you how to do it? Is there a course in university on how to buy a pool? It doesn't exist. Heck, most of you still think pools are $25,000. Trust me, they're not. And so the conversation was different. And then all of a sudden, from a search perspective, it got really, really fun. To this day, if you go online, you search anything about how much does a pool cost, average cost, fiberglass pool, et cetera, this is the first piece of content you're going to see. Now, that's just visitors. That's not a win, so let's track the revenue because that's what we do as marketers so we get big, fat raises. So here's a list of the number one phrases that generate the most traffic to our website over the next few years. So let's look at this one here, fiberglass pool prices. Okay, we had 13,000 people go to Google, typed in fiberglass pool prices. Of those 13,000, 30 of them filled out a form and said, I want to get a quote from you. So these are sales appointments on the right side of the page, okay? Now, what are the red arrows? The red arrows are phrases that when they searched that phrase, they landed on that article on the site. How much does a fiberglass pool cost? So if you add them up, we've got roughly 200 plus sales appointments that occurred from people that originally landed on that article. How much does a fiberglass pool cost? Now here's the very important question. If that article is never written, if it's never published, if we never address the question, how many of those 200 plus sales appointments ever occur? 0 to almost none. Why? 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 Because they wouldn't have found us. But in this case, they did find us because we were willing to address the question. And we know that many of them did read more, fill out that form, have a sales appointment. We know the names of the ones that bought a pool. We know the value of each one of those pools. And therefore, I can take all the values of all those pools and place on top of one little piece of content that literally took me 45 minutes to write at my kitchen table. One night while the kids were asleep. And I can tell you without equivocation that one single article since the day it was written has generated now over $7 million in sales that we would not have had we not been willing to address a simple question. So my point to you is this. Am I saying that every single one of us should have a, quote, price list on our website, yes or no? What am I saying here? What am I espousing? That we talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it, they will live in a place of ignorance. And when we live in a land of ignorance and we look at two products or services and we think, because we don't know, nobody's taught us, that they're the same thing, we will naturally choose the cheaper one. And that, my friends, is called commoditization. I am asking you to decommoditize that service or product that you sell because you teach it so well and you explain the value proposition so well that everybody says, my goodness, how could we not talk about this thing? One single article. Based on that, and please answer this if you're with me. Based on that, is it possible that you talk a lot more about cost and price on your website? Yes or no? That was just so-so. Is it possible that you talk a lot more on your website about cost and price? Yes or no? Be that company that's willing to explain the thing when nobody else is in your space. Couple more. Claims we make. Really quick. Super simple. Take all the claims that you make as a company. They usually sound like this. We're the biggest this, we're the most that, we've been doing this the longest, whatever those are for you, okay? Ask yourself, how many of our competitors make a similar claim? And then ask yourself, of these claims, how many have we visually proven and not just stated? How many have we visually proven and not just stated? Absolutely critical, okay? And then number seven, the customer or the hero's journey, as Disney would call it. Now we're going to tee up a video. And the key to the hero's journey or the customer's journey is, a lot of you have reviews on your site and a lot of you have like testimonials. That's not enough. We need to get to a place at this point where we all have videos that show the story of where that person was, that buyer was, the problem that they had, the journey that they went on with you, your company, and where they are today because of it. That's what a hero's journey has. It always has 3 parts, but it has to start with the problem. It has to start with the issue. So I'm hoping we can show an example of this. Are we able to show it?
My name is Steve Scheinkoff. I'm the CEO of Yale Appliance and Lighting. I've gone through 3 recessions. We lost about a third of our sales. Margins were squeezed. So we hit rock bottom and then some because we owed the banks, quite a bit of money with not much left over. So it was a trying experience. How I met Marcus Sheridan, it's actually a pretty funny story. At this point in time, I'd been blogging for 4 years and I thought I was pretty good. You all know him as the folksy Marcus. I got a different Marcus Sheridan. He goes, we're not here to talk about what you do right. We're here to talk about the many things you do wrong and whether you want to fix them. Can you handle that? And I think that's like one of the pivotal moments in my career because half me wanted to actually strangle him. And the other half said, well, he's right. You couldn't argue with the numbers.
We've had a content manager at Yale for a few years now. It's important that we have a point person who is in charge of...
Right, so does everybody see the struggle, right? Obvious struggle. See, the problem is oftentimes when we create journey videos, the person spends all their time talking about immediately, oh, I worked with such and such, I love such and such. We immediately want to go where the pain was. And then we take them on a journey and show where they ended up because of it. And if you watch that, you would see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, good. Now, that's the customer's journey. So here's the 7. Here's the 7. Let's go back 7R, number 1. Produce that 80% video for your sales team. That answers 80% of their questions. Number 2, those landing page videos that are going to increase conversions by 80% on average. Number 3, the bio videos. Get it in that email signature. Number 4, the product service pages. Remember, talk about what you are, but talk about who you're not a good fit for. Cost and price. If they don't know, they will choose the cheapest one. Teach them the factors that will drive it up and the factors that will drive it down. What is your value proposition? Talk about and show the claims you make. Don't just state them, show them, and then finally, take them on the journey where they can get a true sense of what it's like. And that way your prospects can see themselves. And what's beautiful about these 7 things is pretty much everyone except number 2. Number 2 is for you marketers, even though it helps sales teams. Every single one of these is for the sales team. Every single one. And that's what's so beautiful about this. And this is why it works so very well. Now, the last thing I want to say is this. How do you make this a culture? This list, if you try to skip one, it will blow up in your face. I see companies all the time. We try to short track how we have success. Don't do that. So here's the quick list. Everything, as we talked about earlier, comes down to our ability to get buy-in. We must do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Now, once you have the buy-in, suddenly you're going to have the resources. All of our clients, even though they didn't start this way, 100% of our clients with my agency have a full-time in-house videographer. And you're like, that's crazy. We would never have that. No. Because now we've trained about 150 of them. I'm telling you this. In 5 years, the position of in-house videographer will be as prevalent as sales manager within organizations. I'm not exaggerating. It's around the turn. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to always produce 100% of your videos. I'm not saying outsourcing is bad. In fact, there's good outsourcing companies here today, and that you should use them as a bridge. And there's going to be productions that are so big that you can't use your team, but daggone it, 80% of the videos you produce should be produced in-house by your in-house videographer, because that is the future. The most successful companies we see, they produce more than 100 videos a year. We have found that is the tipping point. 2 videos a week. The majority aligned with your sales team. So now you can see, okay, clearly this is a full-time job. I promise you that it is. I've got 3 companies personally right now. All 3 have a full-time salesperson. That's where you got to be. Number 3, you always start with the selling 7 because that's going to help sales right now and it's going to show the ROI. You want to teach your team on-camera performance. You want to obsess over using it in the sales process. And you want to help them understand it's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be perfect. But it is going to be an exceptional ride. And that's what you call embrace the messy. I'm going to share with you one story on embracing the messy and to your point of on-camera performance that we talked about earlier. And that is this. One time I had this real estate company. They came to me and they said, Marcus, our agents are afraid of the camera. I said, perfect. They said, will you help us with this, like overcome this struggle? Let's do this. So we decided to go to a property that we have, It's their property that they were selling, this multi-million-dollar state. And so we said, let's go down to the lake, and we're going to work on shooting videos down the lake. We're going to shoot a segment. And so I tell the lady that we have one major rule, the subject matter expert that was going to be on camera. I said, here's your biggest rule. No matter what happens, when you start talking, you're not allowed to stop. No matter what happens. You think you mess up? No. You just got to keep going. Just like you are with a customer. It's no different. You're with a customer right now. And she said, okay, I'll do my best. And so I ask her a question on camera, and she starts talking about the lake, and then she feels like she messes up. And as soon as she feels like she messes up, guess what she did? She stopped. I said, no, you can't stop. You can't stop. And of course, what did she say? But I'm just not good on camera, Marcus. And I said, no, that's okay, but you can't stop. Because you don't stop every day. So today, don't stop. Only difference, there's this little piece of equipment. She said, I'll give it my best. So she got through that take. 45 minutes later, she literally did 3 straight videos without stopping on the first take. You can start to see she has a change in her disposition. At the end of that 3rd straight video where it was perfect, she shoots it, she smiles, she looks at me, and she says, Marcus, I think I might be a natural. Now, this is what's possible when you enable your team and you create a culture of video. So my challenge to you, show it. Show it better than anybody in the world. They must see it, your customer, before you see them. They must feel like they've heard you before you've ever heard them, and they must feel like they know you before you've ever met them. And certainly that applies to your sales team. And if you do that, you'll achieve this magical thing that we call trust. You guys have been amazing. Let us make the most of this day. Let us enjoy this ride. And let's get some buy-in as marketers, shall we? Because that's what it's all about. I am Marcus Sheridan. Thank you very much.